Hey guys, this is Lindsay and I am back. We are with Gotcha Reviews, and today we are going to talk to Destini, a registered dietitian who works specifically with athletes and is just like a wealth of knowledge. And we have a ton of questions about creatine specifically. We have done our own research, but we really want to talk to somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about. We actually went ahead and polled a ton of viewers on Instagram asking them what their questions are about creatine, because even though it is such a studied supplement, for whatever reason, there are still so many questions around this supplement particularly. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can continue to see videos just like this one. Also, if you want to purchase any of the products that we have talked about today, we have placed a link below the like button, making it super easy for you to use that link. When you use it, it does give us a small commission, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. And just for transparency's sake, some of the supplements were sent to us for review, but that doesn't change what we are going to say about them. Some of them we might not like, and we will be honest with you and tell you. Some of them we might think are great, and again, we will tell you, we will let you know. But let's get into this conversation because we have a lot to cover today. Destini, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing so well. I'm excited to dive into these questions our viewers have for us.
Me too. I am so excited. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we as like a company here at GGR looked at when we were talking about creatine. So one, the formulation, what type of creatine is in it. So from my perspective, a lot of the things that I have read is like the monohydrate creatine is absolute king, but there's a lot of creatines that have like up to 5 different creatines in them. So we kind of looked at what are the benefits of that, and we're kind of going to get into that and give me, I really want to hear your thoughts on the 5 different types of creatine versus maybe just like monohydrate creatine. Is it third-party tested? What's the taste and solubility on it? I mean, honestly, I've never found a creatine that I thought like tasted fantastic unless it has like added flavors to it. So, you did test that. It's definitely not something that I just want to mix with water. Really, it's not for me. And then how we personally felt using it, obviously this is subjective, but did we feel like over the course of a month taking it, could we experience gains? Like, did we notice any sort of effects, whether that was like positive or negative while taking it? So that kind of went into play as we were making our list of like what we really wanted to put out to our viewers on a good creatine to take. And then we rated them based on factors that include like the formula. So is there that clinically supported dosage of 5 milligrams of creatine in that creatine supplement? Are there any additional ingredients in that? And if so, do they support sports performance? Obviously the solubility, third-party tested, and then taste. So those are kind of like the brief overview of questions that we're asking ourselves as we are testing this creatine. But I kind of want to hear your thoughts of creatine in general from a perspective of somebody who works with athletes and is recommending supplements to athletes, and then somebody who is just saying like, hey, everyday gym goer, everyday garage gym, worker outer, like, here's what you need to know about creatine.
I love creatine. It's probably my favorite sports supplement because sports dietitians love supplements that have science behind it, and it has been the most studied sports supplement that there is out there. And I think that everybody who works out or who lifts should be taking this supplement, whether you're an elite athlete, whether you're a regular gym goer. It has so many benefits from performance to body composition, and it's relatively inexpensive, and it's relatively safe to take as long as you take as directed. There's really no reason to not take it, to be honest. So my general thoughts about creatine are overwhelmingly positive for this active population.
Okay, so that actually brings me to my first question, and this was a viewer question, but also kind of my question. I've been hearing a lot of talk about the benefits of creatine to even non-athletes and how it affects the brain and cognitive function. So do you feel like everybody should be on creatine at this point?
I wouldn't say people who don't lift should be on creatine, but they have shown that for people, older adults, so those over the age of 40, if they do take creatine, even if they don't work out, it can help with cognitive function and the prevention of cognitive decline. A lot of science is starting to tell us that.
Even with that older or generation, we're saying like, hey, there have been some studies starting to come out saying that it could help with like cognitive function as we age. Is it still that recommended like 5 milligrams? Is that kind of what you would say in terms of a dosage?
Yeah, 5 grams is the efficacious dose, anywhere from 3 to 5 grams, but 5 grams, obviously you probably want to take the maximum just to be safe. And also as it pertains to age, especially for females, as we start to lose our muscle mass after the age of like 30 and 40, taking creatine, even if you don't work out, could also be beneficial to maintaining that muscle mass, is sort of slowing that catabolism.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so what would you say the main benefits are to taking creatine?
Oh gosh, so many. But the main ones, it helps with ATP production. I'm not going to go into all the biochemistry of how that happens, but ATP is our main unit of energy, and creatine can help us produce more of that. It can also help with muscle growth. That's probably the biggest reason that people take it. But it can also help with muscle recovery, strength, and just overall athletic performance in terms of power output.
Okay, awesome. Is there any sort of negative side effects on your end that you see to taking creatine? Or is there a group of people who you would say, actually, I would steer clear of this because of XYZ that you have?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that there's any side effects as long as you're taking it as directed. Some people do get a little bit of stomach upset, and that's just a product of them taking an artificial supplement without being used to it. And I warn people that are trying to lose weight, if you're taking creatine, you could gain like I've seen people gain 10 pounds in just water and water weight, just because creatine does pull water into the cells as part of its function to help with hypertrophy. But normally that will sort of temper off as your body gets used to the creatine being in your system. As far as negative side effects, there aren't really that many as long as you're taking it as directed. But if you have any sort of liver disorders, kidney disorders, or you're taking any sort of prescription medications, then you should probably avoid taking.
Okay, so you were talking about, the fact that you have potential to gain, 5 to 10 pounds of water weight. So one of the questions from our viewers was, he's a power lifter, a competitive power lifter. How soon should he get off of creatine, if he should, to make weight if he is cutting before his powerlifting?
Oh gosh, you know what? It really depends. It could take anywhere from weeks to months, to be honest. But I will say, the more muscle mass that you have, like if he already has an appreciable amount of muscle mass, the longer it's going to take for him to get rid of that water weight, just because he has more muscle cells to hold the water. So I would say, just to be safe, 1 to 2 months, you want to come off of that creatine before you do your weigh-in.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so another question that we have is, how long does it take to see really the effects of creatine? I know a lot of people say, you can take 5 milligrams a day and then you'll see, a result. Or some people say, do that loading factor and take that 10 milligrams to 20 milligrams a day in order to see quicker results. Yeah, your thoughts on that?
Okay, so in terms of how long it takes to work, that really depends. Let's say that you're not doing the loading. It still depends on how consistently you're using it, how much muscle mass you already have, what your current diet is. So for people that are on vegan diets and they aren't getting a lot of dietary creatine, they'll see more profound effects because their creatine stores are already very low. And also, what sort of resistance training program you're doing. So there's a lot of factors that can affect how creatine affects you, but it could take anywhere from weeks to months. If you are doing a creatine loading phase, normally what we recommend is 20, maybe 25 grams per day for a maximum of 7 days. How can I say this? You will get faster benefits, but you won't gain more muscle mass faster. Really, the benefits that you'll see faster are at the athletic performance piece that I was talking about. So power output, I tell athletes that have an event coming up, if you want to load with creatine for the week before, then that will probably help your athletic performance. But there's not a lot of research that says that it helps you produce additional ATP or help you to produce more muscle mass by loading.
Okay, no, you're already answering so many questions that I personally had about this, so I love this. What is the best way, or I'm assuming with lots of water, and maybe we can kind of talk about how much water is appropriate to take throughout the day, but then also timing. How big of a factor is timing when it comes to taking creatine? Pre-workout, post-workout, what?
Good question. So in terms of the water, the dehydrating effect of creatine is really overblown. Studies have shown that it doesn't really dehydrate you that much despite its water retention properties. But rule of thumb is if you're taking 5 grams of creatine, 8 ounces of water. So that means if you're loading, then you want to have 32 ounces of water, right? If you're taking that 20 milligrams, just to make sure that you have enough water to sort of not make your tummy upset. In terms of timing, there's not been any research that says that creatine is better either pre-workout or post-workout. What the science says is that you want to take it as close to exercise as possible, but it hasn't definitively said whether it should be before or after. It really has the same effects either way.
Okay, awesome. Now, when it comes to men and women, is there different effects that creatine has on women versus men?
There's not any science that says this, but anecdotally, I have just noticed with my athletes that women seem to have a more profound response to creatine. And this is possibly just because they have less muscle mass. They probably hold on to less creatine overall just because of hormonal changes. But I do recommend that women who are active take creatine just because we're already working in the red to build muscle mass. It's so easy for guys to do it. If we can take some creatine to help us out, no problem to do it.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. My son, he's 14. He just started getting really into lifting. So he's out there, we're dumbbell incline benching together, and I grab the 40s and he grabs the 35s. And I'm like, I've been working up to these 40s and you're just going to go ahead and grab the 35s? Like, get out of here. You can't lift with me anymore.
Exactly what I mean.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So I want to get to the question of monohydrate as the superior creatine. And then I guess there's other types of creatine out there. So are there ones that we should look for, or is monohydrate sufficient enough?
In terms of how much it's been studied, out of all these wonderful benefits that I'm talking about, the science has used creatine monohydrate. It's also the most inexpensive. It's also generally the most well-tolerated in terms of your stomach. And it just seems to be the most effective. I know that there's so many others out there, citrate, nitrate, ethyl ester, chelate, magnesium, all these things. And it all sounds super fancy, like, ooh, different type of creatine. Monohydrate is all you need to worry about. I'm just going to make it easy for you.
That's amazing. And it's the cheapest, so I like it. Okay, so let's say, well, I guess this is a two-part question. This is a viewer question and my question. Is there a point where you should ever stop taking creatine? And then the viewer question is, should I cycle creatine? Should there be breaks in between when I am taking it?
So yes and no. So I do recommend that people cycle off of creatine, meaning that if they've been taking it for 3 months, maybe take a month or 2 off before you start taking it again, just because the benefits you get do cap out. Once your body's like constantly flushed with creatine, eventually it just gets accustomed to it. So you have to wash out of it and then reload back up. But you don't necessarily need to do a creatine cycle in the traditional sense, which usually consists of people taking the 20 grams for 7 days, then doing a maintenance dose, which is the 5 grams for like 2 months, and then cycling off for a month or so. You can just take the maintenance dose for 3 months, come off for 2 months, and then go back on. And if you're not an athlete that needs that athletic performance benefits, it's going to do the same thing for you.
Essentially, are we just always trying to trick our body into doing what we want it to do, whether that's like carb cycling or creatine cycling or like whatever the case may be? We're like, our body's trying to figure it out. We're like, haha.
I mean, our bodies are amazing and that it's going to adapt to whatever it is that we're doing to it. So yeah, we need to be a little tricky with it.
All right. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple specific creatines and then ask a couple more viewer questions. I already personally know the answer to this because, now I am on this train. But best creatine supplement for post-workout, we have the Legion Recharge. I just started taking this in the sour candy flavor, and it is not good. Okay, so why is this creatine specifically good for post-workouts? That is what it says, is post-workout creatine.
Yeah, and, I respect Legion. I think that they don't care one way or another. They just needed a post-workout sort of supplement, and taking creatine post-workout's a good idea. So the reason that I like it is that the formulation is relatively simple, not too many bells and whistles here. It does use micronized creatine, which has been shown to just absorb a little bit better. So that tummy upset I was talking about earlier, if you're not used to creatine, you're less likely to have it if you're getting a micronized creatine monohydrate. But it also has something in it called chlorosolic acid. which is something that will raise your insulin levels. And one of the functions of insulin, just like when you eat food, is that it helps the body to absorb nutrients into its cells better. So if you're taking creatine along with something like cortisolic acid, it can help get that creatine into your muscles a lot faster and start that recovery faster, which is why it's probably a post-workout.
Okay, that's awesome. And really, like, you could take this pre-workout, essentially you're just trying to get creatine into your system as close to a workout as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, and then what flavor? I know you love Legion, so what is your favorite flavor of this? Is it the sour candy?
Sour candy all the way. Like, it's not even close.
I'm telling you what, I took it and I was like, I could just drink this. I just drink it all day. It was so good. Okay, a couple other things I do like about Legion, and we've talked about before, is they are third-party tested. So we know what is going into that creatine.
Exactly. And they always use research-backed ingredients. They don't include anything in their formulation if it's not backed by research. I really respect that as well.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so next we have best creatine supplement for cutting, which I'm so curious about your thoughts on it. It's the Cage Creatine HCI, which HCI is a different type of creatine than the monohydrate, correct?
Yes. So creatine HCl, which is creatine hydrochloride. I'm going to be honest, Lindsay, I'm not a huge fan of it. And the reason for it being is that I know that it's not very good on the stomach. I mean, you can imagine that putting something that's a chlorine derivative doesn't feel super great on the stomach. But the reason that it's popular in supplements is because some research has shown that you can take a smaller dose of it. Like, you can only take 2.5 grams versus 5 grams of monohydrate. It's going to have the same effect. But more recent research has said that that's not true. Like, and you need to, monohydrate still works better. And if you take it in less amounts, you're going to get less benefits with the hydrochloric. So there's really no reason I would select this over a monohydrate supplement, to be honest, unless, for whatever reason, you don't want to take monohydrate.
Okay, that's great. Do you know why it is kind of geared towards those who are cutting? Is it because of the smaller creatine dose, or like what is the factor that goes into that?
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know exactly if it's just because of the chemical compound of it from the hydrochloride or because it's a smaller dose, but I do know that it causes less water retention. So people that are cutting, they need to track their weight and they don't want to bloat. It might be better for them to take HCl.
If their stomach can handle it.
Exactly.
Okay, so now on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the best creatine for bulking, and that is the Crazy Nutrition CRN5. What makes a creatine good for bulking?
What makes a creatine good for bulking is if it has 5 grams of creatine in it. I mean, that's really, you don't need, what is this, 5 different types of creatine. I mean, you could just have the 5 grams of monohydrate and you're going to be fine. But I mean, if you're an overachiever, if you did the extra credit in class, go ahead and take Crazy Nutrition.
Yeah, I mean, this has monohydrate, HCl, ethyl ester, citrate. You can help me with that word. Pyruvate,
yeah, I got it.
And then tricreatine malate. So, I mean, a ton of different creatines. Is that even beneficial?
Not really. I mean, I already talked about HCl, citrate, pyruvate, and the creatine malate. Studies have shown they don't work any better than monohydrate. They have about the same function. And as far as ethyl ester, that's probably the worst form of creatine that you can take because it doesn't do anything. Unfortunately, when you take it, it converts almost immediately to creatinine, which is an organic compound, but it doesn't have any athletic performance benefits. So when they researched this against creatine monohydrate, it actually performed worse because it didn't do anything. So there's no reason you should be taking creatine ethyl ester under any circumstance.
So really, if you're bulking, just stick with monohydrate. If you're looking to bulk, just stick with it.
It's that simple.
Okay. So last one I want to kind of briefly go over before we get to some viewer questions is best creatine for muscle growth, and that is the Redcon 1 Tango creatine. And my first question is it all creatine for muscle growth?
Yes, it is. But I think the reason that this one might be on the list is just because it has some other hypertrophic ingredients like betaine anhydrous, and it has different types of creatine. But that's probably the reason that we put it up for muscle growth.
Okay, I do have 2 specific questions about this one. So the word you just said, beta
Your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, what is the benefit to betaine, anhydrous.
I know that says anhydrous. The betaine, we're just gonna roll with it on that. Yeah, it has been shown to help with muscle growth. It can help delay fatigue as well and just overall muscle recovery, so repair of muscle damage. It's important for people to remember that any compound that helps with muscle damage will indirectly help you with muscle growth, right? Because it's preventing muscle catabolism. So if you don't lose any, then it helps you to gain more. So that's really the biggest benefit with that here. So it does work synergistically with something that's actively hyperbolic like creatine.
Okay. And then my other question with this one specifically is it says to consume at least 120 ounces of water daily while taking the supplement. Listen, I'm lucky if I get 90 ounces of water a day. Like, that's a lot. That's a big ask. Why are we eating that much?
It's a big ask for most. And I think it might just be because it has 3 different types of creatine. And as we spoke before, you need to consume enough water and stay hydrated when you're taking creatine. So if you've got all those different types, then you want to stay hydrated. And also, maybe all of the different compounds in it will give you some stomach upset if it's not super diluted. So they probably figured that out in their testing, and they're like, hey, drink tons of water when you're taking this.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about just a couple viewer questions. One, is there an age requirement to taking this supplement?
I don't want to go so far as to say that anybody can take it, but whenever I'm recommending creatine to youth athletes, I normally don't recommend their parents give it to them until they're about 16. And this is just because obviously we don't research creatine on children. So I can't say that it's unsafe for them, but I don't see why anyone other than the age of 16 would need to take creatine. But outside of that, I think that the older you get past the age of 16, the more beneficial it will be for you for the reasons that we mentioned before.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And then what happens if you don't drink enough water with creatine?
You'll be thirstier. I mean, I don't want to say that it's anything that's like dangerous or anything like that, but you may find that you have some stomach upset when you take your creatine if you don't take enough water with it. But like I said, creatine doesn't dehydrate you. It doesn't give you muscle cramps like aggressively the way that a lot of people say that it does. But if you are not drinking your recommended daily amounts of water and you're taking creatine, then yeah, you might find that you're a little more dehydrated because your body, it is going to pull water away from your body's tissues.
Sure. So essentially, if you're already a dehydrated person and you're taking creatine, you'll just be more of a dehydrated person.
Yeah, with some tummy cramps.
Okay. All right. So this is a very common thing I see on the internet. Does creatine contribute to baldness?
No.
Okay. I figured that was the answer. That is the conclusion I have come to, but I don't know if you see it. I see it constantly where people are like, oh, be careful.
And the reason for that, people think that it causes baldness and people think that it causes acne. And the reason for this, Lindsay, is because people think that creatine is a steroid. Steroids can cause baldness and they can cause acne just because they change your hormones, right? But creatine is an organic compound. It's not a steroid. It doesn't affect your hormones. It operates in a completely different system of the body. So it doesn't have any of those effects. That's just sort of a misconception that people have because people are confused.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else that you would tell our viewers about a specific creatine that you like, or just creatine in general advice that we could come to you and ask?
Yeah, just please, keep it simple. Creatine is so great in the way that you don't need anything fancy. You can go to your local GNC and be like, show me the creatine monohydrate that has 5 grams in it, and you'll be good. I know there's so many of them out there that have 5 different types of creatine and like 10 additional ingredients. Don't make it hard on yourself. It's really just those 2 things that you need and you'll get all the benefits. The last thing I will say is that creatine has been shown to be more effective when you take it with carbohydrates, because like I said, with chlorosolic acid, when your insulin levels are high, the creatine gets into your muscles a lot faster. So if you want to take your creatine post-workout with a high carb meal or pre-workout with a high carb meal, then you will see more profound effects.
Awesome. This is such good information. I appreciate you taking time out of the day to come talk to us all about creatine. I hope we get to do another video all about nutrition or supplements soon with you, because it's just honestly the best shooting days for me when I'm like, yes, I get to talk to Destini and hear all of her thoughts. It's been so good. So thank you for joining us again today, guys. This has been Lindsay with Graduate Reviews, and we'll see you back here next time. Peace.